Welcome to Background Checks 101, an employer help desk. In this session, examples of disqualifying criteria of criminal results are provided to use as a guide in developing an organization's background screening policy. On the agenda, criminal searches, what an employer should know, employer user guidelines, what an employer should consider, disqualifier, disqualifying matrix samples. The intention of this video is to present information about compliance for users of consumer reports and is not a substitute for legal advice. Criminal searches are primarily conducted by name and/or former names. If there is a name match found, researchers look for matching identifiers, such as a date of birth. There are many sources to conduct a criminal search: county, statewide, federal, and multi-jurisdictional databases. Where to conduct a criminal search is typically determined by residential address or addresses of an individual for a specific time frame, but can also be determined where the individual has worked and attended school. Keep in mind, reporting guidelines allowed for background screening companies may or may not be in compliance with what the end user, the employer, should consider in making a hiring, retention, or promotional decision. Background check companies can and do offer guidance on the basics of compliance. But for details of disqualifying criteria, it is recommended you seek your own legal advice. You should know, there is no such thing as an all-encompassing national criminal search. Background screening companies cannot electronically access the FBI database. Even if your company is a regulated industry that requires FBI fingerprints, screening providers do not have access unless they have an origination number issued to them by the FBI, which is very uncommon. Background screening companies do not have access to the National Crime Information Center. Criminal reporting guidelines and user guidelines. Reporting guidelines for consumer reporting agencies. A consumer reporting agency may report the following: any felony or misdemeanor conviction, records of arrest within the past 7 years, non-convictions within the past 7 years. They are also required to follow state restrictions if applicable. Example: California restrictions include no reporting records of arrest unless pending, no reporting indictment information, no reporting misdemeanor complaints, no reporting convictions of crimes older than 7 years. Employer user guidelines. Employers should consider that records of arrest may never be the basis for denying employment. You must consider the nature of the criminal act, length of time that has elapsed since the act, and the nature of the job the applicant is applying for. Comply with state restrictions, if applicable. Develop a disqualifying matrix by position. The Federal Fair Credit Reporting Act and many states have restrictions and limitations of using criminal results in making a hiring, retention, or promotional decision. In addition, EEOC has added enforcement guidance on discriminating against protected groups for criminal records based on race and national origin. Best practices suggest developing a disqualifying matrix based on the nature of the position, how it relates to the job, and business necessity. Examples of possible disqualifiers. The following are examples of potential criminal record results that may be used as a part of your background screening policy in making a hiring, retention, or promotion decision. The nature of the position and how it relates to the job should be considered when developing disqualifying criteria, as well as when to consider individualized assessment. There are no positions added to these examples. Based on the underlying conduct of the crimes listed, much of the disqualifiers will apply to many positions. These examples can be adjusted to fit a particular position. Felony conviction disqualifiers. Add an employee's position to the criteria. Felony convictions within the past 10 years. Ever for crimes of violence such as, but not limited to, murder, attempted murder, torture, child cruelty, robbery, kidnapping, or confirmed acts of violence in the workplace. Ever for violent sex crimes involving, but not limited to, attempted rape, child molestation, child abuse, and other violent crimes. Older than 10 years combined with any other arrest or conviction, felony or misdemeanor, for crimes involving weapons, drugs, theft, violent sex crimes, or violence within the past 10 years. Misdemeanor conviction disqualifiers add an employee's position to the criteria. A single crime involving weapons, drugs, theft, violent sex crimes, property damage or violence, including family, or confirmed workplace violence within the past 5 years. 2 or more crimes involving weapons, drugs, theft, violent sex crimes, property damage or violence, including family, or confirmed workplace violence within the past 5 years. 2 or more DUIs within the past 5 years. Reminder: these are examples of crimes you may want to consider as a disqualifier depending on how it relates to the position. Dismissed, nolle prost, dead docket, and not prosecuted. Disqualifiers for records of arrests that were dismissed, nolle prost, dead docket, or not prosecuted in the past 7 years, you may want to consider the following as disqualifiers based on how they relate to the job and business necessity. Any dismissed, nolle prost, dead docket, and not prosecuted felony combined with a misdemeanor conviction for weapons, drugs, violent sex crimes, theft, or violence in the past 7 years. Any 2 dismissed, nolle prost, dead docket, and not prosecuted felony in the past 7 years. Any 3 dismissed, nolle prost, dead docket, and not prosecuted misdemeanor for weapons, drugs, theft, violent sex crimes, or violence in the past 7 years. Non-conviction disqualifiers. First Offender Act. Adjudication withheld. Youthful offender. Pretrial diversion. And deferred. For crimes of weapons, drugs, violent sex crimes, theft, or violence. In cases of first offender, probation must be satisfied before hiring is considered. Any non-convictions combined with any other arrest or conviction within the past 7 years. Other disqualifiers. Omission, falsification, college degree, if required. Employment verification, blatant omission, falsification. Not eligible to work in the United States, E-Verify, non-confirmation. Drug screens. Positive urine or hair drug screen. Refusal to test. Adulterated. Thank you for viewing Criminal Reporting Guidelines Puzzle Piece. Use this session as a building block for determination or review of your employment screening program.